We're just waiting for Reverend Grahame Wray to show up as we just continue our discussion about the FCE and Barry Shucksmith's book, Here We Stand, which was prophetic and insightful in 2002 to 2004 time period.
Hello, Donald.
Hello, Graham. How are you?
Good.
You're in your car. Oops, Graham disappeared. Will he reappear?
Donald Veitch.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, sorry, I had my.
Okay, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
What's the latest update on Steve Hanna? Oops, Graham has disappeared again.
Hello.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Okay, let me try and get to a better situation.
Okay,
Hold on a second. I can hear you all right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Ah, good.
I can hear you but not see you, but was wondering if you had an update on the Steve Hanna situation.
Yeah, much prayer needed, Don. The update is, could you hear me all right?
Yes.
The update is that Steve has had this, I think it's called an injunction, served on him by the High Court, which is the highest court in the land. And the injunction is to stop him and his congregation using the building forthwith. So it's extremely serious, and it's extremely intimidating, and a thorough abuse of the purpose of that law. The purpose of the law. Can you hear me all right?
I'm listening.
Yeah. The purpose of the law is to, for example, a wife is being beaten by her husband and her children are vulnerable. She can go to the High Court and she can get an injunction to stop that husband from having any access to the wife or the children forthwith, without delay.
Well,
But
what
according to
is
the website, that is the gov.uk website, these High Court injunctions only are temporary measures until such time as the accused presents their case to the High Court, whereupon the High Court will then sit in judgment as to whether the husband is a true threat to the family and whether the wife has that right to stop him from having access to her and his children. So that's the context in which these injunctions are issued. So it beggars belief how Paul Hunt has managed to get a serious document like that issued on a church, because a church does not involve itself in religious affairs. So it, as I say, beggars belief how on earth that injunction was ever served on a church.
Well, it looks like what are the grounds of this claim by malicious Hunt?
Well,
And boy, he has
that's
shown how dirty and filthy he is in this.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Don. That it beggars belief how on earth the High Court has got itself involved in a private dispute between a church and its bishop, because the the state does not get involved in that kind of dispute because it's a matter of conscience and private belief. And Magna Carta tells us that that is a human right, a basic human right, is that you're entitled to worship as you like, who you like, when you like, and how you like. That was guaranteed at Magna Carta. So how the High Court can overrule Magna Carta, I don't know.
What are they saying about Steve? Why are they doing this?
Because he's refusing to recognize Paul Hunt and these new bishops. He's refusing to unquestioningly submit to their authority. That's the only reason I can think of.
Is he still in the FCE?
Well, as we've said before, he's never actually, through sheer admin glitch, he's never actually been officially recognized by the Free Church of England. He's never been inducted into the Free Church of England. I don't know where he comes from. I don't know an awful lot about him. So I don't know exactly where he comes from, but the point is that he's never officially been accepted into the Free Church of England because of COVID. And they've just never got round to, since COVID restrictions were lifted, they've never actually got around to appointing him as a presbyter in the Free Church of England.
And yet he's been down there for 3 or 4 years since COVID.
Yes, that's right. You know, it's one of those things where something was overlooked and it's just never been picked up again since then. But it's purely an admin glitch that he's in good standing with his, as far as I know, he's in good standing with his wardens. He's in good standing with his congregation. When I phoned him on Saturday to see how he was getting on, he was at a church member's birthday party. So it hardly sounds as if he's a great threat to his congregation or to the community they're trying to serve, which makes me incensed that they've issued this High Court injunction on him, because they're making him out to be a threat to his congregation and or the community that they serve. But he's no more a threat than your grandmother or my auntie. You know, he's a faithful brother getting on with the work, preaching the gospel, caring for his people, attending their birthday parties, and just doing the work that one would expect of a pastor. So what on earth, Paul Hunt? I have a good mind to phone Paul Hunt and say, what on earth do you think you're doing, Paul? You know, what is this now how you intend taking the church on, having gotten rid of John Fenwick? Are you going to make it even worse? That's a bit like Rehoboam taking over from Solomon. Your father beat us with whips. We're going to beat you with scorpions.
Wow.
Do you remember that scene in I think it's in Second Kings where Rehoboam takes over from Solomon, and he consults with the advisors of the old man Solomon, who's now about to die. And the old men say, Lord, you know, just serve your people faithfully and they'll be loyal subjects. They'll serve you well. And then he goes to the young men and they say, no, no, no. Your father served us, kept us under his thumb by whips. He treating us with whips. We'll treat you with scorpions. And the young men actually prevailed upon Rehoboam to come down very, very heavily on the Israelites after Solomon. And that's exactly what Paul Hunt seems to be wanting to do, to come down heavily on us recalcitrant rebels. Meanwhile, he is the rebel because he's denied our Declaration of Principles and our 39 Articles. So if anyone's a rebel, it's Paul Hunt, Mark Gredison, and I believe this Matthew Firth guy. So that's my
I
little update. That's my
I
little update, Don.
I talked to Arthur Kay this morning and mentioned all of this, and he said
Uh-huh.
Steve Hanna is a good guy. He's a good minister.
Okay,
And
I don't know him that well, so I'm pleased to hear that.
yeah, and he's a tulip man. He's reformed. Um, and that's what Arthur said. And then my confidential informant said the same thing. And
How do these guys know him from previous ministry or what?
well, Arthur Kay went down to Exeter with Rossello a
Oh yeah, I
while
saw the
back
picture.
and did a
Yeah,
service there. It was some special thing. I don't know if it was communion or
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on Facebook actually.
yeah. And my confidential informant is a longtime friend and godparent to Steve's children and knows him very well.
Okay, that's interesting because I don't have any sort of inside information like that. He sounds like a great guy. You know, when I've spoken to him on the phone, he's been very amenable and very harassed. You know, he's just sounded totally and utterly harassed. And I've pleaded with him not to be intimidated by Paul Hunt and Mark Gredison because I
Yeah.
think he's in danger of being. You know, sometimes we English people can be too subservient. You know, we're a little bit too polite sometimes, and sometimes you've got to tell these these wayward bishops where to get off because they're totally and utterly abusing their authority.
And where's all this joyful ecumenism of Fenny?
Well, exactly. That's what it's all about. You know, he's absolutely determined, and he's made doubly sure that he's got his successors to be equally, if not more, determined to turn the denomination into an Anglo-Catholic, ritualistic, sacerdotal body. That's his mission in life, and he won't rest until he's got rid of every single Reformed Protestant evangelical that he possibly can.
I
That's
am
his mission in life.
I am studying the ecumenical movement because of our discussions on Barry Shucksmith's book, and I ordered the very pricey but very scholarly book called Oxford Handbook of Ecumenism, where ecumenism begins um, in 1910 in the Edinburgh mission movement. And it's 662 pages. It's pricey, but it's scholarly. And I went into the book with this theory that the ecumenical movement is going to be opposed by anybody with strong confessional theology. And over and over and over again, that theme has been reaffirmed in my writing. If you have the 39 articles firmly in your soul, the formularies, the homilies, and then, of course, the declaration of principles upon which the FCE was built, if you're a Fenny ecumenist, you're going to want to get rid of those very defining documents because uh, diversity is the enemy of ecumenism. And there is even Karl Barth. This book tracks the last 100 years since 1910. Even
Why do you say diversity, Don? Don't you mean unity in the gospel or faithfulness to the gospel rather than diversity?
well, for example, the FCE is opposed to the Church of England.
Yeah, but that's not diversity. That's being focused and determined to stand on the truth, isn't it?
Yes.
Diversity in my brain means that you're willing to accept all people, whatever they believe, whatever they do. That's diversity. They also call it inclusiveness. No
Yeah.
one must be excluded.
By diversity, I mean different confessional postures. Confess
Within the Reformed family.
In the church wherever it exists.
Yeah.
Confessional
Okay.
theology and the Lutherans, LCMS here in the US has no use for ecumenism because ecumenism wants to throw out their Lutheran confessions. The Reformed churches, confessional Reformed churches in America want nothing to do with ecumenism because ecumenism says you can't hold those confessions because they offend the Methodists over here and the Pentecostals
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
And so that's where Fenny comes in, where I don't think he's very sound theologically. He's
Yes.
willing to undo and wants to undo the FCE history and theology.
Yeah.
He's been an enemy to the FCE since the 1990s.
Yeah. Well, that was his school. You see, he was brought up, nurtured in the liberal, broad Anglo-Catholic, anything goes Church of England,
And the
and
more
the Church of England has gone further even than that. When he was schooled and when he was teaching in the Church of England, it's gone even further than that now, because now they want to embrace gays and homosexuals and women priests and all the rest of it.
and that has thrown a big wrench in ecumenical discussions, abortion, gender issues, homosexual
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah, but you know what, Don? I'm rapidly realizing in my dealings with GAFCON that they too are fairly liberal. It's quite a wide circle, is GAFCON, and I
Yeah.
think some of your people over there, like this chap Paul Donison, I wonder whether he's not a bit restricted in helping us because he doesn't want to
Ah,
be seen to be at odds with ACNA.
yeah, I got you. Yeah, the ACNA over here is very broad. I would say non-confessional. They've got
Yeah,
it's a big tent Anglicanism. And I
yeah.
saw Archbishop Wood, the Archbishop of ACNA, at a installation service for an REC bishop. I should send you the link on that, Grahame. Incense everywhere, turning to the altar, bowings, crossings, genuflections, all the goofy hats, even Sutton's
Living room drapes.
living room drapes, mama's drapes, even
Yeah.
Sutton
Well,
pointing over
you know,
to
yeah, it's a small step from there to what we saw. My wife and I went to one of the cathedrals here in Wakefield, and we were just browsing around. And in the one side room of the cathedral, there's a big board where some kids have been invited to in a local school, have been invited to draw their picture of what they think the church sort of stands for. And on this one kid's poster, and these are all the sort of award-winning posters, was a picture of uh, a, a, a child wearing a bangle, which I presume is a sort of prayer type, friendship bangle type thing. And the quote is from Matthew 5, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, sort of thing. That's the summing up of the law. Next picture on the same sheet is Allah wants you to know that whatever He appoints for you is for your good. Allah wants you to know this. And then down the bottom, this kid didn't seem to know quite what to write down for the Jews, but she's just drawn the St. David's cross. So basically what the cathedral are saying by commending this child for drawing this picture is that we're a church that recognizes Islam, Allah, Judaism, the St. David's cross, and Christianity, the quote from the Sermon on the Mount. And that's exactly where the Church of England is. The mainstream Church of England is in this country. It's not only multi doctrinal or diversity in doctrine, but there's diversity also in religion itself. In other words, multi-faith, and that's a small step for the ACNA people of this world to take from a multi-creedal sort of basis. You can be Reformed, you can be Armenian, you can be whatever you like, charismatic. We're all one big happy family. From there, that sort of multi-faith idea, it's a very small step to multi-faith religion altogether. And you remember that's earlier on in our study of Here We Stand. That's exactly what Arthur and Barry were objecting to when they withstood Kenneth Powell and John Maclean, because they were having talks with the Church of England and wanting to draw closer to the Church of England.
What a foolish, 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 foolish idea by Powell. And Maclean is not much better. He apparently was a good pastor at Morecambe, and he was loved by the people, but he was not discerning. He should have known that liberal theology was all over the map in the Church of England, and that rather than join it, they should have retained their confessional identity like Barry Shucksmith wanted them to.
Yeah, and the chap from Fleet wasn't much better, and he was high up in Masonry for one thing, but he was also that same kind of I call them cleric, high-ranking clerics who are playing at church. They're not really preaching the gospel. They're not really pointing people to Christ. They're actually just playing church. And the bishop in Fleetwood, who was there for many, many years, conducted several high Masonic celebrations and what have you. He was equally, shall we say, wishy-washy when it comes to anything creedal or nailing his cards to the mast.
Who is this?
The chap from Fleetwood. I keep forgetting his name. I should know it. It's in our churchyard. I'll go and have a look at it. But it'll come to in a minute. They used to call him Roly Poly. That was a nickname because he was very short and round and fat, so they called him Roly Poly. But he was a real kind of PRO type chap, for the Church of England, for the Free Church of England. Got on with everybody, lots of backslapping, lots of handshaking, and all the rest of it. And the typical sort of guy that is attracted to wishy-washy churches, I'm afraid.
You can see where if you're strongly confessional, that will offend those kind of people. Because confessions unite and confessions divide.
Yeah.
And they are rallying points for identity. And in this Oxford Book of Ecumenism, it says that confessional churches must die, D-I-E, and they must experience a rebirth. And in that rebirth, they give up their past memories and their past theology.
We were listening to do listen to Michael Youssef, who's fighting a brave battle over there in an independent sort of Presbyterian type church, I think. But he was saying to us, he was actually giving clips of men he's interviewed over there who are saying things like, if we think we're going to grow the church by expounding letters that were written 2,000 years ago, then we've got another coming. We're just emptying the church if we concentrate on. I'm talking about scripture. These men are talking about scripture. 2,000-year-old letters. That's their view of the Bible.
And that
letters are outdated, and we shouldn't be bothering with nowadays.
that's exactly what Westminster Confession, chapter 1, paragraph 1 says, that God made his word to be written because that would protect the church against the world, the flesh, and the devil, and corruptions. And we could always go back to it as our charter and constitution for doctrine. And then the confession goes on to say, which makes the scriptures most necessary. I think.
Well, you know what, Don? It's also exactly the frame of mind, the mindset of John Fenwick. Because you remember when he came over to consecrate some bishop or other from Mexico or somewhere or another, he preached a whole message from Ignatius.
Yep.
His sermon was based on Ignatius. He didn't hardly refer to scripture at all. And his whole thesis was that doctrine is evolving. It's not a static thing. It's not a thing that you can refer to as an unchangeable and unchanging anchor. It's a football you can kick around, make of it what you will. If it doesn't suit your generation, you can modify it and trim off this and trim off that and introduce this and introduce that. It's a sort of a modern invention is theology. That is the mindset of
the only thing Fenwick can lay claim to as a legacy is destruction. He's done nothing for the FCE.
He won't engage with a Bible believing Christian at all. He knows he's on extremely shaky ground once he starts trotting out church traditions. The church traditions have the habit of changing. They don't weather the storms of time, and they certainly won't weather the storms of eternity. When the Lord Jesus comes, he's going to open the books. One is the book of life, and the other is the Bible. It's going to judge us according to our understanding of and belief in the Bible.
Well, the lay people have also allowed this to happen. There has to be, and in fact, in the ecumenical studies, religious illiteracy favors ecumenism because illiteracy erases the memories and the doctrines so that the laity are not very sharp. And I've long maintained that the Book of Common Prayer can be good and bad. Good for a lot of reasons, but also it can hide bad clergymen behind it. They do the service and they read the prayer book and think, oh, that's good. But meanwhile, you've got a snake who's slithered into the high grass and is hiding in it, like Fenwick. I don't think Fenwick even, I'm going to be bold here, I don't even think he really understands the gospel. I think it's all about Fenwick and his pride and supremacy and superiority. I mean, the way he abused people is just stunning. By their
There's
fruit.
no question. He's not a man who you go to have great insight into the scriptures. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think uh, Jonathan Brigado had that premier insight when the two of them went to visit Virgil Tuntus. And after they
Mm.
left, uh, on the whole drive home, Fenwick sat and criticized all the FCE ministers. And Brigado said, "What kind of bishop is this?" And that was a
Yeah,
turning point for him.
yeah. I think that's what became very apparent in that very, very first meeting. I don't know if you met him before that, but certainly what we've got to hear of now is that very, very first meeting, if that was the first meeting, that Arthur Bentley Taylor had with John Fenwick. His first question, one of his first questions was, are you uh, a Sola Scriptura man, or are you, do you have various ideas about what is an authoritative, uh, what is an authority in the church? And he walked out. Eventually, he walked out to the whole sort of scenario, and didn't say why he was walking out. It's not that I've ever heard of. He just walked out. I mean, how rude is that for starters? You don't just walk out to a job interview. You explain why you're walking out and what your intentions are from then on. Are you going to continue trying to get into that place of employment, or you wash your hands of it? And also, Barry and whoever else you had with him, I can't think. I think you had the treasurer with him, Brian Elwick, and I think he had a retired president with him, Bruce Burrows. But they all assumed when he walked out that he'd ended the interview. That was it. And they sort of feel, well, okay, if that's your viewpoint, that's fine. Off you go. Go back to the Church of England, which is where you came from. No, unbeknown to them at that time, soon came unbeknown to them at that time. What did John Fenwick do? He went to Ken Powell, who's as wishy-washy as he is, and John McLean. He said he whinged to them, moaned to them that the Free Church of England Prime Minister's thrown me out. He's not interested in talking to me. But he was the one who walked out, not Arthur didn't end the interview, as far as we've been told. He just asked him a simple question: do you believe in sola scriptura? Obviously, he didn't, and so he walked out. That's his problem. It's not our problem that he doesn't believe the Bible. And on one occasion, I said to Ken Powell, actually, when I was fairly new in the denomination, and I hadn't really got to know Ken Powell at all. I'd never worked with him or sat under him or anything. Heard him. I don't think I'd even heard him preach. But I'd heard what had been going on between him and Arthur. And I just casually said to him to sort of check out for myself where Ken Powell stood. And I just said to him, do you believe the Bible, Ken? And he got so angry with me. He said, well, of course I believe the Bible. How dare you insinuate that I don't believe the Bible? But it was a good question because all the evidence pointed to the fact that he doesn't believe the Bible. He was a high up Mason, and I've got my doubts about anybody who's a Mason, whether they truly believe the Bible, because Masonry at its very heart is multi-faith. And it was very evident to me, that was a confirmation to me, that Ken Powell and the Bible weren't very close friends at all.
You know,
and it
um,
certainly proved to be the case.
um, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Roger DeBerry told
Yeah,
me
yeah.
that his first lunch that he had with Ken Powell was about Powell talking about ecumenism with the Church of England. And he said, Powell said, the only doctrine we cannot compromise on is the Trinity. In other words,
Yeah.
there's the ecumenism angle. And I was going to say, and I didn't say it earlier, that Karl Barth, who's wrong on so many other things, in 1934 got this point wrong, that the ecumenical movement is an exercise in doctrinal compromise. And so there's Powell in 2006 willing to auction off FCE history, doctrine, confession as long as they stuck to the Trinity, which tells me he wasn't very sharp theologically either. I don't think he had a theological education.
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he's formally studied theology ever. I stand to be corrected, but that's certainly what's filtered down to me is that he and John McLean and the chap in Fleetwood, whose name I'm trying to remember, they all were brought in because of their skills in the secular world. I mean, Ken Powell was a trade unionist, very influential in his workplace as a trade unionist. He's John McLean, I think, was in I think he was in the scientific world. He was quite well qualified in some secular uh, uh, role or other. And of course, the chap in Fleetwood was a higher Mason, so that implies that he was a sort of professional stroke businessman type person. You can't be a Mason unless you're quite high ranking in society. You know?
We, Graham, you and I have lived to see the breakdown of our denominations. If you saw that installation service of the bishop by Sutton, the the REC founders who are dead now would be rolling over in their graves. It was as high Anglo-Catholic as you could possibly be. It was
Yeah.
obnoxious. I need to send you that link. I did get an inquiry about the differences between the old prayer book and the REC prayer book from a scholar friend, a doctor friend. So I have yet to produce anything on that in detail. But I use the REC Book of Common Prayer every morning. That's
I just thought about first name in Fleetwood. He was the primus for many years, Cyril Milner. Does that name ring a bell? Cyril Milner?
we've mentioned him. I don't know a lot about him. He was a bishop for a long time,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah, he's in exactly the same mold as John Fenwick, Ken Powell, and John McLean, but very different from Arthur Barry. Arthur, well, Barry as well, but Arthur Bentley Taylor, uh, Bruce Burroughs, uh, what's the other chap's name? Barry Shacksmith.
Yeah.
Chalk and cheese theology.
You know, we've been talking about Barry Shucksmith's book quite a bit, and we need to get that into print. We have not,
Yeah, but it's something that's a little bit more of a disciplined fashion. We tend to get a bit distracted, and it would be good for us to press on with that, I think, because it is a legacy from Barry and almost prophetic, I would say.
Yes.
From the preaching.
Yes. Yes, prophetic is the word that crossed my mind as you were signing in this morning, and I was waiting for you to arrive.
Yeah.
Was the word prophetic. He saw that, he saw the dangers.
Yes. Don, I'm getting told off here because I'm stuck in the driveway of the church and the
Oh,
kids are arriving. But
okay, so you need to go.
I'll either to relocate or go today, which you want to do.
Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow then, right?
Do you want to relocate and carry on a bit?
Okay, I'll see you later.
Okay, then, Don.
Bye-bye.
Yes, are you better now, by the way? Are you better?
Bye-bye.
Have you recovered from whatever you were suffering from?
What?
Have you recovered from whatever you were suffering from?
You're breaking up. I can't quite hear it.
Are you recovered from what you were suffering from?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a couple days. Yes, I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent. Okay, Don, I'll speak to you tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Bye, Graham.
God bless. Bye.